It's Shirley and Sir Winston here again. We've been looking back at the ornaments from the Jesse tree, and Sir Winston figured out that this one represented David. If you remember, that was a question a little while ago. But he had a good question for me. He noticed that there was some, like Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus, that would have known one another. But he asked me how many might have been together at once, that maybe not all of them were family. So we've been looking over the pictures and we think we have the answer. It involves David again, but it also involves Jesse and Samuel. So I promised Sir Winston I'd tell him a story about when all three of them were together. So perhaps you'd like to listen in to that story too.
The Lord continued with Samuel, and Samuel watched over the people of Israel, serving as a judge, traveling throughout Israel. As he grew old, he appointed his sons as judges for Israel. But they were not good men like Samuel. They took bribes, and justice was not done. The elders gathered and said to Samuel, "You are old. Your sons do not walk in your ways. Appoint a king to lead us, just like the other nations." This did not make Samuel happy, so he prayed to the Lord. The Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to the people. They have not rejected you, but they have rejected me as their king." He said, "Warn the people and let them know what a king who reigns over them will do." So Samuel spoke to the people, telling them that a king would take their sons for his army and to work in his fields, and he would take their daughters to be perfumers, cooks, and bakers, and he would take the best of their fields and vineyards and olive groves, and some of their grain and wine and cattle and servants. The people refused to listen to Samuel, saying, "We want a king to lead us, to go out before us in battle." Samuel told this to God, who said, "Listen to them and give them a king." In time, Samuel anointed Saul to be the king of Israel. Saul was king of Israel for 42 years, but at one stage Saul did not do what God had asked, and God rejected him as king over Israel. Samuel told that to Saul. Then Samuel returned to his home and mourned or felt very sad about the situation. God said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I'm sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons." Samuel said to God, "How can I go? If Saul hears about this, he will kill me." God said, "Take a heifer or a young cow with you, and say, 'I have come to sacrifice it to God,' and invite Jesse to the sacrifice. I will show you what to do, and you are to anoint the one I tell you." When Samuel arrived in Bethlehem, the elders were nervous. They said, "Do you come in peace?" Samuel said, "Yes, I have come in peace to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come to the sacrifice with me." He consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them. When they arrived, he saw Eliab and thought, "Surely this is the one that God has appointed." But God said, "Look not at his height or his appearance. I do not look at things like man does. I look at a man's heart." So Jesse had his second son pass by, and Samuel said, "The Lord has not chosen this one." Jesse had his third son pass by, and Samuel said, "The Lord has not chosen this one." This happened for 7 of Jesse's sons. Samuel turned to Jesse and said, "Are these all yours?" Jesse said, "There is still the youngest, but he is tending the sheep." Samuel said, "Send for him." as we will not sit down until he arrives." So Jesse sent for him. He came in, a young, healthy-looking boy. And Lord said to Samuel, "Rise and anoint him, for he is the one." Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers, and from that day the Spirit of the Lord came upon David in power.
Sir Winston was telling me that he really liked the story, especially the part where it said that God doesn't look at outside appearances, God looks inside a person's heart. Sir Winston really liked that because sometimes people make fun of Sir Winston's little tummy, and he's glad that God can see the inside of him, that God does not judge like people around. And I think that's something that we should be glad about too. But we should also remember that we shouldn't judge people by how they look on the outside. Shall we have a little prayer together? If you could bow your head and repeat after me. Loving God, thank you for being with us. Help us not to judge others. Help us to be kind and look after your world. Amen. And we'll see you next time at Kids Corner. And Sir Winston was saying Valentine's Day is coming up. He knows that because we've been making some crafts. And he has a question about who was St. Valentine. So maybe we'll look into that and see about a story for that next week. Take care, and we'll see you again at Kids Corner.